folks, I'm Melly Little, and this is your daily TA wrap. But we take a look at these markets from a little bit of a different perspective. I call it neoclassical. And we ask ourselves, what happened today? And what does it tell us about the coming day? I do the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, here from the base of what is a beautiful Rocky Mountain high. So folks, we had not so much a spill, but a pretty good pullback last week or so. Reversed on Thursday. I guess it was Wednesday actually. It's been up ever since. Does it continue? Is it another V-shaped move? I mean, that's what everybody wonders. That's what everybody looks at. That's what everybody thinks it is. You know, and right now, it's kind of hard to argue with it because it certainly looks like it's going to do it again. Let's look at the numbers. We were up again today, pretty much across the board. We had the Dow Jones, let's see here, Dow Jones up 64 points, 15,301. The S&P's up almost 1710. They're up into that wide price spread, high volume bar at this point. Composite 23.4, 38.15 and a quarter. The NDX 22 higher, 32.56, and the Russell hit all-time highs 1090.30. We had a little bit of a bounce back in gold. I see it's down after hours. Really not much happening anywhere except for in those equities where the belief is that we're definitely going to see another one of those to the moon shots as a result of a solution to the debt crisis, right? And so they're bidding it up in front of the actual news. Usually you get some sort of a sell the news effect when it takes over, but right now it's nothing but up. Up again today. They actually gapped down this morning, pushed down farther than pushed right on back up over the highs. You're back into this bar deep now. This was the 918 bar. The 920 bar is the other one. That low is 708.89. You're at 710.14. So you can see we've pushed into it now. Folks, this is telling me it's going to try to make it to the highs. Now, yeah, you can get a little pullback in front of that, but right now, just like we've seen every other time, we've had these V-shaped moves. Once they get going, the programs kick in and they don't stop until they hit new highs. So I wouldn't be surprised, you know, given the extent of the move. 1646, you're at 1711. That means we've already moved 75 points. 75 points, 3 days, folks. That's going to flip, come back, do some sort of a little retest on the news once it's announced, probably. In other words, you know, you get the spike into the news, then you get your news, you get a little sell, but I can't see how this thing's going to trade all the way back to the lows anytime soon. Looks to me like, if anything, it's going to be some sort of a large range, but when we look at the Russell, you can see that it's starting to break out. So either this thing turns right immediately, or this is going to keep working higher. And you know, 2 days ago I wouldn't have believed it, but then again, I've seen this so many times I can't even begin to describe how ugly it is because it keeps coming, but it just keeps presenting itself that way. So back into the bars. I can't argue with the tape. Tape saying it's going to try to go higher. Given the extent of the move already, I think we'll see some sort of a pullback here at some point. The hard thing now, and before we even move to the other indexes, the hard thing now is, you know, if you're not really long, or if you are short, you know, what do you do at this point? Do you double down? Do you try to chase the stuff higher again? I mean, that's always the issue. And in particular now it's worse because now it's so news event driven. In other words, you know that as soon as the news is announced, you're probably going to get a sell news effect given the bump you've already had. I can't see how this is going to juice it all that much more they're already juicing it as a result of that news. So when you get the news, you're probably going to get a pullback. So if you're trying to get long, you just got to wait and get the pullback to get long at this point, or simply hold on to what you got if you are long. If we look at the Dow, the weakest of the group, you know, I say weakest. This thing is going from 14,719 up to 15,309. So that's a pretty good move already. 500 plus points in 3 days. You know, you can see how ridiculous these numbers become after a while. So 15,332. Yeah, I mean there's a little bit of resistance here, and of course into this big bar. So the Dow Jones, there's really it's hard to read anything out of the Dow right now. It's just going to take it a few months before it becomes useful again. But if we go to the strong stuff, let's look at the composite. So the NASDAQ composite going for the top. The high out there, 38.19. That was on October 2nd. And we're going into it 14.5. We got the 38.16. That has 18 on it. So you can see we're going into it, lighter volume. It's right there. I'd be surprised if it doesn't go kiss it tomorrow. Volume tailing off as you're going into it. NDX probably going to show the same thing. The high there is 32.56, and we're at 32.57. So actually so this one's interesting. So we go into it today, we close at 32.56.02. 32.53 is 32.56.71 was the high. So you go into it, you have less volume, you fell on the test at the highs. That argues for some sort of a retrace. Let's see if the Russell, and I'm looking at these for the first time. I didn't get a chance to look at them this afternoon. So 1087, this one's going to hold though. Okay, so 1090 is the close. Again, S&Ps want to try to trade higher. Russell's already at new highs. Yeah, it doesn't have the volume, but you know, it doesn't care. It's breaking out again. NDX failure. NASDAQ wants the test. Mixed signals, one down, three more trying to go higher. And the Dow, I'm not really trying to count. So still mixed signals. Still looks to me like we'll try to trade higher again. The NDX will try to trade over it again tomorrow, and then we'll see if we get the pullback or not. And I do expect a pullback. So if I would not be trying to chase here with a news event driven market. Let's go to the sectors and see if they tell us anything different. So transports. Yeah, can't get any juice. Just kind of hanging there. So JB Hunt is going to give us earnings tomorrow. Be the first one in that sector. So we'll see what those look like tomorrow. SMHs, I believe, got over the highs today. And let's see here. They got 4071, 4081, close over it, less volume. 877. Yeah, so another suspect breakout. So that's two of them suspect breakouts, but it's over it and it closes over it, so it can go higher. XLB can't go anywhere, and this one's failing at resistance. So SMHs want to go higher. IYT can't find any juice. XLB's failing at resistance. Now we're coming into the big bars on the XLE, and it's getting into them. That is going to try to get to the top of this one. So it goes into resistance today. So the bottom of that was 84.97. We close at 84.62. Doing 7.4. That looks like a failure too into resistance. And that's, again, a slightly mixed signal in that you're into the bars. So if you don't get a pullback right away, it'll try again. But that's a failure into resistance tonight. XLF used to be the leader, now the laggard. And no volume goes into resistance. And that also looks like a test failure into resistance. XLI. Another one failing into resistance as it comes into the big bars. XLK. Technology. Now this one stayed into the resistance, the first one, and is into the 2 bars. So this one's more like the XLE. It will either have to fail right away or it will try to carry farther. Let's see here. So 3 kind of trying to go up, 4 of them trying to come back. XLP, that one still can go higher. XLU, the utilities. So I guess they don't like a budget deal. They want interest rates to trade differently. I guess the bonds were down today. XLV. Okay, so this one's going into the big bars too. Now, you know, one thing, and there's always, you know, a lot of caveats, right? One thing today is you had Columbus Day. So, you know, the fact that there's lighter volume as we push up into these bars, to some extent, right, is to some extent you have to kind of say, oh well, you know, it is Columbus Day, and banks were closed, and you know, so there is some lighter volume, but I hate to try to make excuses for it. Most of these are failing in the resistance. This one actually is trying to get up into those 2 bars, and it's into them, and the question is can it get to the top now, because it doesn't quite have the volume. So these are very mixed too, right across the board. 3 or 4 saying failures on zones, 2 or 3 saying they either going to keep pushing or they may fail. And the XLY, the discretionary, also looks like it's going to try to get up a little bit higher. So about half and half. Let me see what the bonds show us, because the utilities sold off. Let me see what the bonds. I know the dollar was down slightly, not much to it. Bonds, I believe, were down today, but how badly? They couldn't stay under it, and they have no volume. Okay, it's 104.39. So they got into it, no volume. This will be a good test tomorrow. So they're coming back. They're finally coming back into this August 23rd bar. They test into it and close over it, and they, you know, test under this bar a couple days back and close over it. So tomorrow we'll find out if the bonds are really going to sell down or not. And I'm looking for them to try to get down to this low on the September 18th bar. But you know, it's up for grabs whether this one can hold or that one can hold. As you know, I'm thinking bonds are trying to turn and interest rates are going to come back down. But right now, with all the stuff going on in Washington, they can't really make up their mind, but it looks to me like they're going to try to trade down again a little bit farther. We'll see if that holds or not. So that is a test. That is a test failure. This thing should try to turn back up tomorrow. That's the bonds. I saw gold up today. It's down after hours. It looked pretty weak today, and so it closes the gap, does a retest regen off of this bar, has no volume. This thing's going to come back and test the lows again. Silver, let's see if it was stronger or not. Not really. Silver's starting to give it up too. Let me see what dollar looks like. Okay, so the dollar, this dollar still looks like it wants to try to go up. How about FXC? And that also failed. Yeah, this dollar's going to try to rise. How about the yen? And the yen failed to try to get higher. The yen's going to try to come deeper. This big bar, it's trying to test the top, going to try to test the bottom. Okay, let me see here. So no questions. Cool. I'll go over. I'm going to look at a few of the company specifics that are going to start giving us earnings. So let's start with some of these and see what they look like going into earnings tomorrow. Citigroup. Okay, so Citigroup, some decent volume on the way back, pushing back up towards the gap on a weekly. Really just looks like a nice little range trade going on. The financials have been the ones getting hurt. Now, Wells Fargo and JPM last week couldn't get anything going. I saw Wells Fargo up today. Let me look at what JPM did. Yeah, it held in there pretty good too. So, financials struggling, but you know, they're holding in there. JB Hunt is going to report. This is the first of the transports. Let's see what it looks like. That looks like that one's going to come right back down. If I look at the weekly, it's not so bad. It's a range, but it could trade back to the lower end of this range. So that first transport doesn't look that healthy. Johnson & Johnson is going to trade. This is our first big healthcare name. And this one, man, that doesn't look like that one's going to rally either. Boy, these earnings are going to have a hard time. How about Coca-Cola? Trading near the lows on the daily. You got to go all the way to the monthly on this thing to find that it's a range. 37.11 is a pretty good anchor zone. 37.11. I expect you'll get some sort of bounce out here up into this resistance around 39, and it's going to struggle there. So Coke probably gets a bounce, but most of these earnings look like they're going to trade lower, not higher. Let me look at Wells Fargo and what it actually did today, and then there's one more financial. Yeah, that looks pretty good today, and that's Schwab, Charles Schwab. Let's see what Schwab's going to do. Okay, so it's trying to push higher into earnings. It had the big push off the top two. These are all just big range trades. So more and more, you know, looking at these individual stocks, they look even more range bound than the indexes or the sectors, which is kind of interesting. At least the first ones here that are reporting. Let me flip over and see what the overseas markets look like, since I have a little time tonight, and see what they're doing. Okay, let's start with Australia. Okay, pushing back up into man, that doesn't look like it's going to get back up there. Let's see what it did on the weekly. So it came back to do the retest regen 45.7. That looks like a successful retest regen. What is struggling here, it looks to me like this is going to test again into this big bar one more time tonight and probably fell again. 52.62. Let's look at Korea. No, how about Taipei? With the chips so strong here, I expect this one's going to still look strong. Okay, so remember this was trying to test the highs on a weekly, and it did, and it left volume up there as it did it. 83.11 was the low. Where was the high? 84.33, 84. So it gets over it. It's interesting. Gets over it, doesn't have the volume. 13.5. It did 13.2. That's a failure test of the highs. It's going to retrace. Okay, and the retrace has already started. I would think it comes back in, does a full retest regen off of this bar. 82.65. It's going to get that tonight and probably get all the way back down into the bottom of this breakout. bar, which was 83.36. So that looks to try to trade lower tonight. Japanese market, the topics. So they've pushed this thing up. That yen looks like it's going to come down, which is probably going to try to help this one more time to get a little bit higher. And if I look at the weekly, it's still that big range. It's trying to trade up to the top eventually. So the Japanese market looks like it will hold tonight and try to trade higher. Korean market, Kospi. So that breaks out. Interesting. Gets over the highs. Doesn't have the volume. Or does it? Yeah, it did have the volume. So it's a confirmed breakout. Holds the gap last night. This thing's going to try to test all the highs now on the weekly. 20.33 is the last one. And the volume up there was on a weekly is about 1.9. Yeah, I don't think it's going to have volume to break it though. So, but it's going to consolidate up there. How about Brazil? So Brazil, wow, Brazil's got a nice push going, huh? They're into the bottom of the high wide price spread bar. 53.982. Yeah, they closed into it. Boy, we just, even in the world markets, we don't have the volume on the way up, but the price is there. And you know, they're pushing back up there to test again. Let me look at Europe real quick before I run out of time. Start with the CACs. Pushing the highs, doesn't have the volume. It's probably going to fail. The weeklies are up there, and the monthlies are all the way to the highs. So this is, well, this is a little different, right? You got two swing point highs. Well, actually one. You got a swing point high on the monthly that was taken out last month. And you got a swing point high here that was taken out, this high. And now it's going after the big one. Doesn't look like it's got the juice. Given that that break on the monthly has happened, that says that we still could see some more push, because you got multiple swing points. But before that happens, probably more consolidation. FTSE, then this one's been the weakest one in Europe of the three majors, and it's getting just like the Dow looks like to me, getting a spike off the bottom. I don't see much there. German DAX has been at the highs. It's testing. Big bar here is 87.13. It's right at it, just over it. And that one also has breakouts on the monthly and the weekly. So I can't say that the international markets look weak, but you know, my take here is what we're going to probably see is we're going to see this market spike on the news and then drop. And that news, you know, what's going to happen, it looks to me like, you know, given the news flow, it looks like the Senate is going to work out some sort of an agreement probably tomorrow. They're going to send it over the House just in time for the House to, you know, approve it on Wednesday before the debt ceiling issue hits Thursday, which is going to put Boehner in a you know, terrible position, because if he brings it to the floor, it will probably pass whatever the bill is. So it's a question of, is he going to bring it to the floor or not? Because so far, in most cases, he's not brought these bills to the floor if the majority of the Republicans aren't going to vote for it, which will be the case again. And given that, he's in a bad spot, because if he brings it to the floor, he may no longer be the speaker. If he doesn't bring it to the floor, we get a debt default. Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to give up your own speakership for the country? Probably so. So you'll get a spike and then a sell the news, and then you'll get your pullback, and then at that point we'll have an ABCD structure. on the way up. It's the way it's working. And more it looks like they're going to jam this thing into the end of the year like they usually do. So it's going to take a major act of you-know-who to probably move this market lower. With Russell breaking out, volume's not there, but price is there. Still mixed signals, news-driven. Wait for the pullback. Try to set up one more time and run into the end of the year with it. All right, how back? Small retrace probably, SPX. The question was how far back will it come? I don't think you're going to see it come back very far. Let me pop up the SPX again. We'll use it because I tend to like to use that one more, but let me find it here. SPX. All right, so pop in here and look at it. This big bar up, that's going to hold it on the way back probably. That's 1692 now. We're already at 1711, so that's 20 points down. I think it would have a hard time getting under that. So somewhere down in there would be the ideal spot. The wild card here is a debt limit default. If that happens, all bets are off. We're going to go down. We're going to go down hard. And I find it hard to believe that that's going to happen. So, all right, folks, it's been a long day. I'm going to call it a night. I appreciate you being there. Take care of yourself. Until next time, I'm L.A. Little. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a good one. Take care. Good night.